long before time learned how to count itself, before days were given names and years were trapped inside numbers. There was a land that existed between remembering and forgetting. That land was called Anfer. It was not the biggest land, nor the richest, but it was one of the oldest. The people of Anfer believed that the world was alive in ways humans could not fully understand. They believed the wind listened, the earth remembered footsteps, and time itself watched everything with patient eyes. In Anfer, no one mocked age. To grow old meant time had permitted you to stay. To die young meant time had collected a debt. Because of this belief, people lived carefully. They did not rush joy, and they did not challenge fate without reason. Children were taught early that curiosity was powerful, but power without respect always returned as suffering. It was into this land that a boy named Adeyemi was born. From his earliest days, Adeyemi was restless. When other children played with stones and sticks, he watched the sky. When others listened to stories and accepted their endings, he asked what happened before the story began and after it ended. His mind was always moving ahead of his body, chasing meaning the way dogs chase scent. The elders noticed. They spoke quietly among themselves and shook their heads. Questions, they said, were doors. Some doors led to wisdom. Others led to places humans were never meant to enter. Adeyemi, they feared, would not know the difference. Only his grandmother, Jolaro, did not discourage him. She was older than most living memories. Her voice carried the weight of many seasons, and when she spoke, even the young listened. She had lived long enough to know that curiosity could not be killed, only guided. She told Adeyemi that questions were not bad, but timing was everything. Some truths, she warned, arrived too early and broke the person who received them. Adeyemi listened, but youth hears warnings as suggestions, not laws. As he grew, strange things followed him. Birds gathered when he spoke aloud to himself. Dreams came to him clearer than they came to others. Sometimes he would say something and events would answer days later. As if the world had been listening closely, people began to keep their distance, not out of hatred, but caution. By the time Adeyemi turned 17, his name carried weight, not the kind that opens doors, but the kind that makes people step aside. The night everything changed began quietly. The air was thick, heavy with expectation. Fires struggled to stay lit. Dogs whimpered without reason. Then, without warning, the drums began to beat. No one touched them. No hand struck skin. Yet the sound rolled through the village like a heartbeat that did not belong to any living body. People locked their doors. Elders whispered prayers they had not used in years. The moon climbed the sky, hesitated, and then hid behind thin clouds, as if it did not want to see what would happen next. Adeyemi lay awake, the drumbeats echoing inside his chest. Then he heard it, a voice that did not come from outside, but from within. It called his name softly, patiently, like something that had waited a very long time. It asked him to come and see. Fear rose in him, but curiosity rose higher. He wrapped his cloth around his shoulders and slipped into the night without waking anyone. The village paths felt unfamiliar beneath his feet, as though they had shifted slightly to guide him forward. When he reached the edge of the forest, he stopped. Every child in Anfer knew the rule: never enter the forest after moonrise. The forest did not move with human time. A night inside could become years outside. Some people returned before they entered. Some never returned at all. Adeyemi stepped forward anyway. The forest welcomed him. Leaves whispered, not randomly, but with intention. They spoke his name correctly. Paths rearranged themselves as he walked, bending gently to guide him deeper. The deeper he went, the quieter the world became, until even his own breathing sounded too loud. That was when he saw her. She stood beneath a towering silk cotton tree, dressed in white cloth that seemed woven from age and moonlight. Her face was young and old at once. The moon shone directly on her, yet her feet cast no shadow. That absence frightened Adeyemi more than any beast could have. She told him he was late. He asked how that could be, since he had not known he was invited. She smiled and said no one ever did. From within her cloth, she produced a small calabash sealed with red thread and carved with symbols. Adeyemi felt rather than understood. She told him it contained time. Not days or years, but time itself, folded and restrained. She warned him never to open it in anger, fear, or greed. Her voice was gentle. That made it dangerous. Before Adeyemi could ask another question, the forest shifted. Sounds rearranged themselves. The woman vanished. The path behind him opened. He ran. When he burst into Anfer at sunrise, his chest burned and his heart raced with excitement and fear. But the village that greeted him was not the one he had left. Houses were older. Trees stood thicker. Faces he recognized looked unfamiliar, cautious, changed. When he reached his grandmother's hut, his legs failed him. There was a grave. Her name was carved deep into the earth. She had been dead for 10 years. The calabash trembled in his hands, and in that trembling, time began to break. Adeyemi knelt before the grave until the sun climbed high enough to burn the morning mist away. People gathered at a distance, whispering, watching him the way one watches a spirit that might suddenly remember it is not human. Some recognized him, some did not. Time had carried him forward without asking his permission. And now he stood misplaced, like a word spoken too late. An elder finally stepped forward and asked his name. When Adeyemi answered, the man's face drained of color. He said the boy had vanished 10 years earlier. He said Jolaro had died waiting, convinced until her last breath that her grandson would return, carrying a burden too heavy for his age. Those words cut deeper than any blade. Grief hardened into anger, and anger pressed against the calabash in his hands. He remembered the warning, but pain is louder than wisdom. His fingers trembled as they brushed the red thread. The air thickened. Birds fell silent. The seal loosened. Time did not burst out violently. It leaked, like memory returning after long suppression. The world shuddered, not outwardly, but inwardly. Adeyemi felt moments stacking incorrectly inside his chest. The past brushed against the present. Futures whispered. The village changed. Children aged overnight, their laughter replaced with confusion and fear. Elders grew young, reckless, forgetting the patience that had once defined them. The river reversed its flow, carrying dead leaves upstream. Names slipped away from people's tongues. Anfer forgot itself. Adeyemi ran, clutching the calabash as it grew warmer, heavier, more alive. The forest paths opened again, as though they had been waiting. The land beyond Anfer was no longer familiar. Villages appeared where none had existed. Others crumbled into dust before his eyes. He wandered through a place where a leopard sat beneath a baobab tree, speaking only in riddles. The animal told him that speed without direction leads nowhere, and power without restraint eats itself. Adeyemi listened, understanding too late that the leopard was not guarding the tree, but the future rooted beneath it. Further on, he met a woman who lived every moment twice. She laughed, cried, and screamed all at once, remembering nothing when it ended. She told him knowledge without balance was torture, and begged him to leave before he learned too much. In another land, a king tried to steal tomorrow. He hoarded days the way greedy men hoard grain, until yesterday collapsed under the weight. His kingdom froze in a single second, people screaming silently forever. Adeyemi could not help them. Time does not reward interference without wisdom. With every step, the calabash grew lighter, and Adeyemi grew older. His back bent. His hair grayed. Youth drained from him, replaced by understanding that came at great cost. He learned that time is not evil, but it does not tolerate ownership. It must move, or it will rot. At the edge of the world, where sound thinned and even thought slowed, Adeyemi reached a vast open plain. There, time waited. It did not appear as a being with a face. It appeared as weight, as pressure, as the feeling of every moment you have ever lived, pressing gently but firmly against your chest. Time spoke without words. It asked why humans always wanted more than they were ready to carry. Adeyemi answered honestly. He said humans feared ignorance. Time replied that ignorance could be cured, but arrogance could not. It reminded him that wisdom is not stolen, it is grown. To repair what had been broken, Adeyemi made a choice no young man should have to make. He released time fully, knowing the cost. The calabash cracked, not loudly, but finally. Time flowed back into the world the way blood returns to a sleeping limb. Painfully at first, then steadily. Villages healed. Rivers corrected themselves. Children grew slowly again. Elders remembered patience. Ainfor remembered its name. But time demanded payment. Adeyemi felt himself thinning, fading, becoming story instead of flesh. His name loosened its hold on the world. People forgot his face, then his voice, then even the shape of his questions. By the time the sun rose again, Adeyemi was gone. Only stories remained. Today, when elders in West Africa warn children about asking too many questions too quickly, they speak softly of a boy who chased answers and became wisdom. They say curiosity is a gift, but humility is its guardian. They say time is listening. And sometimes, when the moon hides and drums beat without hands, time remembers Adeyemi and smiles.